and welcome to my presentation about United States and Turkey relations after the collapse of Soviet Union. And the end of the Cold War in 1991 completely reshaped the global order. The Soviet Union was disappeared and leaving the United States as a world only just one superpower. For Turkey, this was a turning point. During the Cold War, Turkey had been fronting NATO and also but after the collapse of Soviet Union, Ankara faced a new question: how to redefine its relationship with Washington in a unipolar world. And in this presentation, we will guide through the major stages of the relationship in 19th, 2000s and 2010s and also 2020s, looking at both open, official and interaction and unofficial behind informations about Turkey and the United States relations. Now let's begin with the 1990s, the first decade after the Soviet collapse. The relation officially between the Turkey and the United States was a strong and cooperative, because the United States relied heavily the Turkey during and after the 1991 Gulf War, because United States used Turkey's Incirlik Air Base to enforce a no-fly zone over the Iraq, and there was an Operation Khalid that provides comfort. It was for the protecting Kurdish refugees from the Saddam Hussein. And for Washington, Turkey was a democratic and a Muslim majority ally, useful for the promoting stability in the Middle East and the democracy. Newly independent post-Soviet states like Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan. Economically and militarily, United States continued to provide aid, while the Turkey maintained a clear Western orientation. But behind the scenes, there are more complex, like United States intelligence reportedly used Turkish territory for surveillance of Iran, Iraq, and the Caucasus. Turkey also began to act more independently in Central Asia, trying to build influence in Central Asian countries because of the Central Asian countries speaking a Turkic language. And also something that United States quietly supported as it was a limited Russia's return to the region. In 2000s marks the rise of new dynamics, because after the attacks of 11 September, the United States launched a war on terror, and Turkey also started to support in many ways, especially in Afghanistan and both nations started to fighting against extremism, and Turkey presented itself like a model of modern Islam community, modern Islam democracy. But in 2003, the major crisis erupted. The Turkish parliament voted against that United States troops to invade Iraq through the territory of Turkey. And it was one of the shocked and unexpected refusal for the United States in a long-term ally with Turkey, and started to this moment was like starting a new era, that Turkey was ready to say no in this huge time for United States, when there was a national interest risk of national interest of Turkey. But at the same time, the United States occupation of Iraq and the Kurdish groups in the Iraq, which Turkey considered terrorists linked to the PKK, but that United States saw the partners, Turkey saw the threats, and these disagreements cases like a serious military and diplomatic frictions. But in official sites, there are sayings that Turkish media and officially accuses that United States ignoring Turkish security concerns, not just the United States. There was sayings that NATO also ignoring and not protecting safety of Turkey. By the end of the decade, the mistrust was growing, even while the official cooperation continued within NATO and with the United States, but unofficially there was a huge gap after the 2003. And in 2010, there was a most turbulent years in Turkey and the United States relations, because it was because of the Arab Spring and the Syrian civil war. It's already changed entire regional landscape. Because United States began to support Kurdish-led forces YPG and the fight against the ISIS, and how it's for Turkey like a terrorist groups like PKK, but for United States it was not a terrorist groups. So while the United States saw a line against terrorism, Turkey saw it like an American-backed enemy near the borders. And in 2016, everything was escalated. Turkey faced a dramatic coup attempt against President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. There was started the misunderstandings or discussions because of the Fethullah Gulen, and Fethullah Gulen who lives in the United States, and Turkey thinks that Fethullah Gulen organizing the coup, and the Turkish government accuses the exiled cleric by Fethullah Gulen. And the Ankara demands his extradition, but Washington always support and protect him. And the came of S-400 missile crisis that was in 2019. Turkish purchased that Russian-made air defense system that ignoring United States and warning that it's not incompatible with a NATO technology. But in a result, United States removed Turkey from the F-35 a project to fighter jet project that was in a NATO, and the United States make sanctions on the Turkish defense industry. Now, if you will say that starting the period of 2020, relations remains fragile but functional, because two countries still sharing economic, military ties through the NATO, and the United States, Turkey also members of NATO. Turkey geographically position remains as a crucial between the Europe, Middle East, and the Russia. When, for example, when Russia invaded the Ukraine in 2022, Turkey played an essential and a crucial mediating role, because it has the talks between Moscow and the Kiev, between Putin and Zelensky, and helped to negotiate the Black Sea Grain Initiative, allowing Ukrainian grain exports through the Turkish Straits. And the diplomatic success shows that despite tensions, Turkey remained the indispensable partner for the both West and Russia also. Let's briefly distinguish the legal and the unofficial sides of United States and the Turkish relations. Officially, it's a NATO cooperation in the defense trade agreements, sanctions, and arms sales decisions. Officially, diplomacy between presidents and the foreign ministers, United States and Turkey, but unofficial or closed aspects include that intelligence sharing or competition between the CIA and the Turkey's MIT, and the foreign influence campaign in Syria, Iraq, and also in the Central Asia countries, and the political lobbying, informational leaks, and the soft power influences for the weaker countries. And also, to conclude, the history of Turkey and United States relations after the collapse of Soviet Union is a story of continuity and the transformation, because in the early years they were united by shared Western goals. Turkey also more was like a pro-Western, and by 2000 and 2010 there was a national interest in the regional crisis, created a mistrust between two countries, and in today the partnership survives because both sides need each other, not because there was a full agree or there was a in a fully good negotiation, but both sides need each other. They don't have another way to do. But Turkey has evolved from being loyal Cold War ally and independent regional power that can balance East and West, but United States has learned that maintaining influence in the Middle East, in the Eurasia, like impossible without Turkey's cooperation. They understand that they can't influence Middle East and Eurasia without Turkey.